Despite the rather ominous weather predictions for today, we're here to do the barrel break-in experiment on this rifle. And for those of you that missed the first part of this and all of our adventures figuring out what's wrong with this barrel, I've got some issues with this bore. And essentially it's got a reverse taper. The muzzle end is ever so slightly larger in diameter than the chamber end. And as a result, we can see with the bore scope that the bullet's actually losing its seal in this barrel, and at about 2.5 inches before the muzzle, gases are escaping, and I'm not getting quite the velocity I should, and the accuracies, 1 minute it'll shoot great, next minute it's all over the place. So it's finicky to say the least. So we're gonna try doing my old barrel break-in procedure just to see if it makes a difference on this bore. And I want to say this is not what a barrel break-in procedure was designed to do, and we'll talk more about that at the end. But we've got a unique opportunity here with this barrel to see if it makes a difference, if it helps any with this condition. And I'm hoping that between the process of cleaning using JB Bore Cleaner, which is a very mild abrasive, essentially it's a polish, between the combination of cleaning with it and the bullet making direct contact with the steel in the barrel, will that be just enough to even this bore out so I get a good seal for the length of the barrel, thus improving velocity and accuracy? I ain't got a clue, but let's try it and find out. For the testing, I've loaded up some 130 grain bullets, and this is 270 Winchester. And part of my issue, as I mentioned, my velocities are slower than I should be. And part of what we're looking for in this experiment is, are our velocities going to increase as we go through the process? So we're going to be recording velocities. But I did want to say, before we get into this, I'm using MagPro powder in these cartridges. And MagPro produces some really high velocities. So I don't want any of you to look at these velocities and say, oh, well, you know, Tom, what are you complaining about? It's running way up there. And these will probably be some pretty high velocities, but it's still not producing the velocities that it should. I'm getting higher velocities with the same ammo from 22-inch barrels than I am this 24-inch barrel. So I wanted to point that out before we get into it. Now, let's get started. And that was running 2,942 feet per second. Now let's check this bore, and just out of curiosity, find out what it looks like with an absolutely spotless clean bore. What does it look like after one shot's fired through it? So this is the throat right here, and it's just entering the bore. And this area right here, this is normally all we're worried about affecting with the break-in process. Just this, where the bullet first enters the bore, where your rifling starts, and we'll talk more about that later. But after one shot with a pristine bore, we can see some copper fouling on the lands, and that's about it. Not much carbon. It looks to be pretty clean, other than that little bit of copper. And then we can see more copper on the bore itself as we go further down. Now we're starting to see carbon at the end, and this is from where I didn't get all of the carbon out in the previous cleaning toward the muzzle. And right here, we're close to the muzzle right now, and this is where the bullet's actually losing contact and carbon's actually getting around it. But I see some copper fouling there, so that's a good sign. We might already be making progress. Okay, let's get back to cleaning and shooting now. I've covered my cleaning process in depth in the previous video, and I'll leave a link to that below in the description. But real quick, I'll go through this once, and then I'm just going to start shooting and cleaning, because this is a long process as is. But got my bore guide, and that's just to keep all the junk out of the chamber and to keep it out of the magazine and action and everything else. I'm starting off with a round patch, and I've got just a standard jag here. Someone called me out on this in a previous video, and they were right. And it always hurts when you're called out by someone and they're right and you were wrong. Lay a patch over you, or lay a towel over your stock to keep all of these chemicals and stuff off the wood and tang and soaking down in there and everything else. All right, now I'm going to use some Kroll penetrating oil. Going to soak this patch real well. We're going to run this through the bore. We didn't see much carbon in the bore with having been cleaned in that one shot, but it is surprising how much is on this patch here. And something else I figured out too in the previous cleaning, using a smaller patch so that it's not as tight of a fit when I'm putting the penetrating oil in, letting it soak. This tends to want to push a lot of the oil through instead of just really drenching the barrel. So a smaller patch does help with just drenching the barrel and penetrating oil, and that's all I'm trying to do here. And we're going to let this penetrating oil sit for a few minutes. Again, something I learned in the previous video. For a really dirty barrel, letting the penetrating oil sit for overnight, 24 hours, that really made a difference also on the cleaning. The penetrating oil actually gets down to the steel, and it just helps with removing all of the old copper and carbon and everything else. We don't have 24 hours to let this sit in, as far as for the cleaning in between shots and so forth. So I'm going to give this just a few minutes, let it soak, let the Kroll do its thing in there, and then we'll start with the JB. So now I have a Parker Hell style cleaning jag. I've got a square patch with JB bore cleaner on it. I'm going to wrap it around the patch, and that's the difference between a Parker Hell style jag and a standard cleaning jag. The patch doesn't go on the end of the jag, it wraps around it. And then this Parker Hell style jag will hold it in place. And I'm going to coat the outside of this really well with JB bore cleaner. And I got to say, these cold conditions aren't the best for doing this. This JB is kind of thick right now. Now I want to make sure this jag's as tight as possible so it fits well through this bore guide. I cut the patches down previously. I mentioned the square patches that I'm using were perfect from a 30 caliber, a lot tighter in this 270. And now with everything being so cold and the JB being thicker because it's cold, it's really tight right now. One thing a lot of people that don't talk about often is when you're figuring out what patches to use to clean your bore, you might have to do some experimenting to find a patch that fits really good. You might have to take square patches like I have and trim them down a little bit, or you might have to get different size round patches because they come in different diameters. You can get them really small for a 22 bore, get them much larger for a 270 or 30 caliber. But you might have to do some experimenting to find the perfect fit. And then when I go back and cleanings after this, I'll know now to cut my patches down just a little bit more. I'm taking about 1/4 of an inch off the ends of these square patches. And these are 2 1/4 inch square patches. So they need to be about 2 inches, maybe even a little less for right now for what we're doing for this 270 bore versus a 30 caliber. And what I want to do, I explained this all in depth in the previous video, but I'm primarily scrubbing the chamber end. So I'm doing this as if I were hand lapping this barrel. So I'm going in 1 inch, coming back, going in 2 inches, coming back, going in 3 inches, coming back 4. And then just slowly working my way down this bore until I get to the muzzle. And I'm not exiting the muzzle with this. I've got tape on this cleaning rod so I know where to stop at so that I'm getting really close to it but not coming out of the muzzle. I don't want to round over the edges on my crown. I want those edges really nice and sharp. Now I'm going to take just a round patch, soak it in some little bit of Hoppy's number 9, use a regular jag, and I'm going to use this to clean out all of the JB bore cleaner and Kroll and all of that good stuff. And I'm going to run these wet patches through here until they come out clean, and then we'll finish off with some dry patches. I ran my wet patches with Hoppy's number 9 through here till they came out clean, and then I ran dry patches through, and now they're coming out clean. And the chamber's clean as well. We're ready for shot number 2. That shot was 2,969 feet per second. Now, I got to repeat the process a lot more times. We fired the first shot and cleaned. We fired the second shot and cleaned. We fired the third shot and cleaned. Now I'm going to fire the 4th and 5th shots and clean. And now we're getting close to the end of this. It's time for 4 shots in a row. I'm not sure exactly when I started this morning. I'm going to say around 10 o'clock, 9:30ish. And it is right at 3 o'clock now. So, yeah, I've been here cleaning for a while. But we're down to the last group now, 5-shot group. So I fired the first shot and cleaned, fired the second shot and cleaned, fired the third shot and cleaned. Then I fired 2 shots and cleaned, fired 3 shots and cleaned, fired 4 shots and cleaned. Now we're going to fire 5 shots and look and see what we've got. What'd you say, Stephen?
What you videoing?
You. Do a little introduction here. You're going to be on YouTube.
All right.
Folks, this is my friend Stephen, And
What's up?
let me clear something up real quick. I am not that short. He's just that tall.
You are that short.
No, you just that tall. And we got a little pleasant surprise here. He brought his rifle today, so we'll get the 270 wrapped up and we'll talk about that at the shop, and I'll show y'all what we've got to barrel, because I hadn't even looked yet and I'm kind of curious to know. And yeah, we'll get that done, and then we're going to have to shoot his gun a little bit. With all of the shooting and cleaning finally done, and that took a while, let's look and see what we got, because I'm curious. And I've got the bore scope here. Okay, this is the throat, and this is the bore. And what I was saying earlier, that this area right here, this is where the bullet first enters the bore. This is where it first makes contact with the barrel. And traditionally, a break-in's always been thought of as meant to smooth this out, this area right here. The finish reamer, when it goes into the chamber, it leaves tool marks here. And Russell mentioned he had talked to Sheelan, and they explained this to him, but I thought it was interesting that their explanation to him was exactly what I've been hearing for 30 or 40 years now. But the tool marks run this direction because the reamer's turning. All right. So therefore it's not in line with the bore. And smoothing this out and your lands where the bullet makes contact with the, okay, right here's the lands. This area is actually raised up, and then this beside it's your grooves. The bullet making contact here, these lands are different. In other words, they're not all even. So you're kind of smoothing that out too. That's the whole point of a break-in. So the bullet contacts that. All right, now as we go in, we can see we've got copper fouling on the lands. Again, that's the raised surface. We can see we've got some copper and carbon inside the grooves. Okay, right here, we've got a land here and a land here. We can see copper fouling on it. This is the groove in between. And we can see some fouling in the center. Not much. And it's not nearly as consistent. And we also don't see much carbon outside of that. And if we keep going, now we're getting more fouling. And we're actually getting a lot more fouling in between the lands. All right, so that's a definite improvement. We weren't getting that before. And if we come on down here, now we're at the muzzle. Okay, this is the land here. We've got copper fouling on either side. Again, that didn't exist before. And this fouling running this direction, this was all I was seeing before in the muzzle. Okay, maybe this is copper, and maybe the copper we're seeing running this way after it sits in here for a few days or something. Maybe it turns dark, and that's where all the dark comes from. It's not actually carbon, but copper. I don't think so, because we were seeing so much fouling on the chamber end that I wasn't seeing before. But that's an improvement. Just that we're even getting copper fouling here. It's not all the way across, but it's definitely a lot more than we were getting. Again, before, all we had at the muzzle was just these horizontal patches of carbon. So what did I learn after all of that work? I learned that my old break-in process absolutely affects the bore of a rifle, and I do believe it can help with a reverse taper. Did I fix the problems in this rifle, in this barrel here, doing that today? I don't know yet. The jury's still out on that one. Accuracy, I couldn't go by the results we saw today, because we were literally shooting with no fouling shots, and then the 4-shot group that I shot there, where I had 1 shot low, and then my next 3 shots were almost touching each other, 1/2-inch group with 3 shots. That was very encouraging, but then the 5-shot group after that was all over the place. Well, that's what you're going to see after you just clean the barrel and you're just starting to lay down some fouling. There's a lot of inconsistencies. Plus, I was never shooting for accuracy today, or never counting on seeing any accuracy. That was not a stable setup on that bench, and the rifle was sitting way too high above me. But again, I wasn't counting on seeing any accuracy results. Again, with the cleaning, you're going to see all over the place until you get a few shots through and get some fouling down. That's when your barrels will start to settle down. Velocity. My velocities actually started going down throughout the day. They got lower and lower, and then the very last shot was 2,860 feet a second. Is that because we're still losing gas in the muzzle, or was that because the ammo was getting colder throughout the day, and MagPro powder is temperature sensitive? Can the ammo starting out at room temperature, it was in the house, I put it in the vehicle, vehicle's heated, drive to the range, so it's starting out basically room temperature. It's getting colder and colder. It was, I don't know, 40, 45 degrees today. We'll call it 40 with the wind. It's pretty chilly. Will that 30-degree drop in temperature cause a 60, 80 feet per second drop in velocities? I guess 100 feet based on some of the velocities I've seen initially. Will it cause a 100 feet per second drop in velocity due to the ammo being colder? I don't know yet. So I've got to carry this back to the range and do some more shooting and just, okay, is the accuracy improved? Are my velocities lower now? Did I mess this barrel up, this bore, by doing what I did? Was this too big on the end to start with and I just made the rest of it too big? Well, to start with, I didn't ruin the bore. Okay, let me throw that out there right off, and this is a really important part here. My normal old break-in process, and y'all saw it today, shoot a shot clean, shoot a shot clean, shoot a shot clean, shoot 2 shots clean, 3 shots clean, 4 shots clean. Okay, I normally, when I would break in a barrel in the past using that method, I wouldn't scrub the barrel aggressively like that. I was very aggressive with this barrel and the scrubbing on it. Very aggressive. Normally I would do 10 passes the length of the barrel with JB bore cleaner. That's it. And that would be my cleaning rather than the scrubbing as if I were trying to lap the barrel. Okay, as far as possibly ruining this barrel by being so aggressive, I couldn't ruin this barrel because this barrel was ruined when I started. Okay, with the reverse taper and it not giving me the accuracy and velocity I wanted, I was not happy with that to start with, and I couldn't ruin it because it was already ruined. All I could do was either fix it or break it further. I really don't know which one we did at this point. I've just got to go back to the range, run some more rounds through it, get some more velocities, compare this barrel to a 22-inch barrel. Are we getting higher velocities now with this rifle and a 24-inch barrel? Are we getting higher velocities than a 22-inch barrel with the same ammo at the same time in the same conditions? So that's, yeah, we're just going to do some more testing and see. But keep in mind too, I went into this fully prepared to take this barrel off of this rifle, throw it away, and get a new barrel. And I want to be real clear about that before any of you start thinking about getting really aggressive on cleaning a board just like I was doing. I don't want anybody thinking, well, I saw Tom River do that. It's perfectly okay. No. I went in this with the mindset of, I'm going to alter something, and we're going to see. And we did. And it is getting copper fouling all the way to the muzzle now. I've never seen that from this rifle before, so we altered something for better or worse. I'm thinking one more trip to the range, and then I'll be able to make a definitive call on this one. Did I make it better? Did it make it worse? Did anything change? That's where we're at with the Westerner right now. And did I fix it, or did I get a new barrel? That's basically what it's going to boil down to. And y'all got to meet my friend Steven. By the way, I'm 5'10". So that should give you an idea how tall Steven is. I think he's about 6'8". Yeah, pretty tall. And his twin brother is no longer with us, Gary. Both of them pretty much the same height. I played basketball with them once when we were teenagers. Once. Every time they turned around, I caught an elbow to the face. And it wasn't because they were trying to hit me in the face with their elbows. It was just my face was level with their elbows. Yeah, tallness runs in their family. But I didn't show y'all Steven's rifle for a reason. It deserves its own special video, and that was a nice one he had. And I'll go ahead and tell you, he just got a Springfield M1A long range. Pretty nice rifle. And that's not my traditional hunting rifle by any means, but I've always had a soft spot in my heart for an M1A. It's just, anyway, we'll talk about that in the future when we do a video on his. That's pretty nice. And I really enjoyed shooting it. Okay, I hope that gave y'all some insight as to barrel break-ins. I can't say whether you should or shouldn't do one. One thing I did want to say, premium barrels and premium rifles, custom barrels, they don't need a break-in. All right, the whole point of you paying the extra money for a premium rifle barrel, they've done the hand lapping in it. They've already smoothed everything out. That's why you pay the extra. Now, some shooters might still want to do one. Everybody's got their own thoughts on this. But the break-ins were generally reserved for your factory rifles, your Winchesters and Remingtons and Rugers, where the barrels hadn't been hand lapped. So that's something you'll just have to make your own decisions on. I can say all of the rifles that I did a break-in on in the past, they were shooters. I can't say that they wouldn't have been, had I not done the break-in. All I can say is that they shot extremely well after doing it. So, anyway, we do know, though, that a break-in does actually do something, especially if you get as aggressive with the cleaning as I was today. I don't know when we'll get back to the range to finally make a call on this one, but especially with the weather like it is right now, probably going to be iced in and snowed over tomorrow. But anyway, we're going to get back as soon as we can. And for me personally, I really want to, I've got too many projects right now. I got too many irons in the fire, too many rifle projects left over from last year. And I'm really wanting to get a few of those knocked out this month. I know it doesn't feel like it right now. Spring's going to be here before we know it. I'm going fishing this year. I want to get some of these projects done, and too many unfinished projects, they just weigh on you after a while. So I want to get some of this wrapped up, and that's going to be our goal for the next month. Just see what we can get done. All right. God bless. Lord willing, I'll see y'all next week.